The odds were 7-1 against him. Sports writers predicted he'd be carried out on a stretcher. The reigning champion, Sonny Liston, was considered the most terrifying fighter in boxing history. But 22-year-old Cassius Clay had other ideas. What happened on February 25, 1964, in Miami Beach didn't just shock the world. It announced the arrival of the greatest boxer who ever lived. This is the story of the fight that changed everything. Sonny Liston was a nightmare given human form. He stood 6'1", weighed 218 pounds of pure muscle, and had fists so large they required special gloves. His reach was 84 inches, longer than most heavyweight champions in history. But it wasn't his physical dimensions that terrified opponents. It was his aura. Liston had done hard time in prison for armed robbery. He had connections to organized crime. He'd worked as an enforcer for the mob. When Liston stared at you with those dead eyes, you weren't looking at an athlete. You were looking at someone who'd actually hurt people, who knew what violence really meant. In his previous fight, Liston had destroyed former champion Floyd Patterson in one round. Patterson was a skilled, respected champion. Liston had made him look like an amateur. The rematch went the same way. One round, total destruction. Boxing experts declared Liston unbeatable. Some called for the heavyweight division to be shut down until Liston retired, because nobody could compete with him. Then along came Cassius Clay. At 22 years old, Clay was young, loud, and seemingly delusional. He'd won an Olympic gold medal in 1960 and had compiled an impressive professional record of 19 wins and 0 losses. But he hadn't fought anyone close to Liston's caliber. Clay was fast and skilled, but could speed defeat raw power? Could technique overcome brutality? Most experts said no. The weigh-in before the fight became legendary. Boxing weigh-ins are usually formal, quiet affairs. Fighters step on the scale, shake hands, maybe exchange a few words. But Cassius Clay turned the weigh-in into a spectacle that would define his entire career. He arrived at the Miami Beach Convention Center screaming, "I'm ready to rumble! I'm ready to rumble now!" His entourage had to physically restrain him. Clay wore a denim jacket with "bear hunting" written on the back. He'd been calling Liston the Big Ugly Bear for weeks, mocking his appearance, his intelligence, his fighting style. Now, face to face with the man who terrorized the heavyweight division, Clay refused to show any fear. "You're too ugly to be the world champ," Clay shouted. "I'm gonna whoop you so bad they're gonna put you in the zoo." Liston just stared at him with those cold, dead eyes. He didn't need to say anything. His record spoke for itself. 36 wins, 1 loss, 25 knockouts. 2 former champions destroyed in 1 round each. Liston was 32 years old and in his prime. This loudmouth kid was about to learn a very painful lesson about respect. But something strange happened during the weigh-in. When Clay stepped on the scale, the doctor noticed his pulse was racing. Not just elevated, it was at 120 beats per minute, double what it should have been. Clay's blood pressure was dangerously high. The doctor pulled aside Angelo Dundee, Clay's trainer, and said the fight might need to be postponed. Clay wasn't medically fit to compete. Dundee knew what was happening. Clay wasn't scared. He was acting. This entire performance, the screaming, the taunting, the apparent hysteria, was psychological warfare. Clay wanted Liston to think he was terrified, emotionally unstable, easy to intimidate. It was all theater, but very effective theater. The Miami Boxing Commission fined Clay $2,500 for his behavior at the weigh-in. They called it disgraceful conduct. But Clay didn't care. He'd accomplished what he wanted. He'd gotten into Liston's head. For the first time in his career, Sonny Liston looked slightly unsettled. This kid wasn't behaving like his other opponents. Usually, fighters facing Liston were quiet and tense, already half defeated before the first bell. Clay was different. Liston didn't know what to make of it. Fight night arrived. The Miami Beach Convention Center was packed with 8,297 fans who'd paid to see what most assumed would be a public execution. The closed-circuit television audience was massive. Homes and theaters across America tuned in to watch Liston defend his title. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation and dread. Clay entered the ring first, dancing and shadow boxing, showing no signs of nervousness. Then, Liston climbed through the ropes, and the temperature in the building seemed to drop. He wore a hooded white robe that made him look like an executioner. When he pulled back the hood and stared across the ring at Clay, several people in the audience gasped. The referee, Barney Felix, called both fighters to the center of the ring for final instructions. This was when opponents usually sized each other up, when the psychological battle reached its peak. Clay stood eye to eye with Liston and said, "You got me mad now. I'm going to have to beat you bad." Liston didn't respond. He just maintained that dead-eyed stare that had broken so many fighters before the first punch was even thrown. The bell rang for round one. Liston came forward like a tank, throwing heavy shots designed to end the fight early. But Clay wasn't there. He moved with a speed that Liston had never encountered before. Clay was literally dancing around the ring, hands held low in a style that violated every fundamental rule of boxing. His head movement was extraordinary. Liston threw bombs that would have knocked out any other heavyweight, but they hit nothing but air. Clay circled, jabbed, and moved. Circle, jab, move. He wasn't trying to knock Liston out in round one. He was trying to frustrate him, to tire him, to show the world that Sonny Liston wasn't invincible. Every time Liston missed with a big punch, Clay would stick out his tongue or shake his head, taunting him. "You can't hit me. You're too slow." Round two was more of the same. Liston was getting frustrated. He'd never fought anyone this fast. He'd never fought anyone this confident. His previous opponents had been afraid. Clay was laughing at him. In the corner between rounds, Liston's trainer warned him to stay patient, to cut off the ring, to stop chasing. But Liston's pride was wounded. This kid was making him look bad. In round three, Clay changed tactics. He stopped moving quite as much and started landing combinations. 1, 2, 3 punch combinations that snapped Liston's head back. The champion was bleeding from a cut under his left eye. The crowd couldn't believe what they were seeing. Sonny Liston was bleeding. Sonny Liston was getting hit. Sonny Liston was losing rounds. Round four was when disaster nearly struck for Clay. As he came back to his corner, he suddenly couldn't see. Something was in his eyes, burning them, blinding him. "I can't see," Clay shouted to Dundee. "Cut the gloves off. I can't go back out there." To this day, nobody knows for certain what happened. Some believe Liston's corner had put a substance on his gloves, possibly the same medication used to stop the cut under his eye. And when Liston punched Clay, the substance got in Clay's eyes. Others think it came from Liston's own cut, that blood and medication mixed together. The truth was never established. Angelo Dundee faced a critical decision. If he cut off Clay's gloves and stopped the fight, Clay would lose by technical knockout. But if he sent Clay out blind, Liston might seriously hurt him. Dundee made a choice that would define his career. "Rinse his eyes," he shouted. "He's going back out there. This is for the heavyweight championship of the world. We're not quitting." The bell rang for round 5. Clay, still partially blinded, went out and did something extraordinary. He ran. He literally ran around the ring, staying as far away from Liston as possible while his vision slowly cleared. Liston chased him, throwing punches that mostly missed, landing a few that would have knocked out most fighters. But Clay survived. His conditioning, his speed,
his defensive skills all combined to get him through the most dangerous round of his life. By the end of round 5, Clay's vision had cleared. Round 6 was total domination. Now fully able to see, Clay unleashed a combination assault on Liston. Jabs, crosses, hooks, uppercuts. The champion was swelling. Both eyes were damaged. The unbeatable champion was being systematically dismantled by a 22-year-old who wasn't supposed to have a chance. Between rounds 6 and 7, something shocking happened. Sonny Liston, the most feared fighter in boxing, the man who destroyed 2 former champions in 1 round each, refused to come out for round 7. He claimed a shoulder injury. He told his corner he couldn't continue. The corner threw in the towel. The fight was over. Cassius Clay had done the impossible. He was the new heavyweight champion of the world. The moment the referee raised his hand, Clay went absolutely wild. He climbed the ropes and screamed at the press section, "I shook up the world! I shook up the world! I'm the greatest! I'm the king of the world! Eat your words!"
The sports writers who'd predicted Clay's destruction sat in stunned silence. The 7-1 underdog had won. The loud-mouthed kid had backed up every word. The fighter they'd dismissed as all talk and no substance had just outboxed, outworked, and outfought the most terrifying champion in boxing history. In the post-fight interviews, Clay was vindicated. "I told you I was the greatest," he said. "I told you I'd whip the big ugly bear. I told you he couldn't hit me, and I was right about everything." The transformation from Cassius Clay the underdog to Muhammad Ali the champion had begun, though he wouldn't announce his conversion to Islam and name change until the next day. The controversy over Liston's quit has never been fully resolved. Did he really injure his shoulder? Medical examinations were inconclusive. Liston claimed he tore the muscle throwing a punch in round 1 and fought through incredible pain for 6 rounds before he physically couldn't continue. Others believed Liston quit because he realized he couldn't beat Clay. He landed his best shots, absorbed tremendous punishment, and was only going to take more damage. Rather than be knocked out, rather than be humiliated, Liston chose to quit. A third theory, popular but never proven, suggested the mob had told Liston to take a dive. Liston had connections to organized crime. There were rumors of fixed fights in his past. Some believed the mob had bet against Liston and ordered him to lose. But no evidence ever emerged to support this theory, and Liston always maintained his injury was legitimate. What couldn't be disputed was that Cassius Clay had fought brilliantly. Even if Liston quit rather than being knocked out, Clay had made him quit. Clay's speed, his defensive wizardry, his conditioning, his strategy, it all worked perfectly. He'd executed a game plan that involved taunting Liston to make him angry, surviving Liston's early power, wearing Liston down with speed and volume, and breaking Liston's will by showing him that his punches couldn't land, and when they did land, they couldn't hurt Clay. The rematch happened 15 months later in Lewiston, Maine. By then, Cassius Clay had become Muhammad Ali. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. Ali knocked out Liston with what some called a phantom punch that few people in the arena even saw clearly. Liston weighed down and didn't get up. The controversy over whether the punch was real, whether the fight was fixed, has persisted for 60 years. But that first fight in Miami Beach in 1964, that fight was real. That fight was extraordinary. A 22-year-old who'd been dismissed as a clown, who'd been given no chance by experts, who'd been told he'd be carried out on a stretcher, had defeated the most feared fighter in the world. He'd done it with speed, skill, intelligence, courage, and an unwavering belief in himself that bordered on delusion, except it wasn't delusion. It was prophecy.
"I am the greatest," Clay had shouted after the fight. At the time, many people thought it was arrogance. In retrospect, it was simple truth. The greatest heavyweight boxer who ever lived had just announced himself to the world. He'd proven that courage could overcome fear, that skill could overcome power, that a smart fighter could beat a stronger fighter, that confidence, even when it seems like madness, can sometimes move mountains. The fight also changed boxing itself. Before Ali, heavyweights were plodding, powerful punchers. After Ali, the emphasis shifted towards speed, movement, and boxing skill. Ali showed that a heavyweight could float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. He revolutionized the sport simply by being himself, by refusing to fight the way heavyweights were supposed to fight. Years later, when Ali was asked about the Liston fight, he said, "That's when I became the greatest. Not because I beat Liston, but because I proved I was right to believe in myself. Everybody doubted me. Everybody said I'd lose. Everybody was wrong. When you prove the whole world wrong, that's when you become great." Sonny Liston never recovered from those 2 losses to Ali. He fought for a few more years, but was never the same. He died in 1970 under mysterious circumstances. His legacy is complicated. A fearsome champion defeated by an even greater one. But Cassius Clay's legacy? That was just beginning. The kid who shook up the world in Miami Beach would go on to shake up everything: sports, politics, religion, civil rights, war, peace, and the very definition of what it means to be a champion. If this story of the ultimate underdog victory inspired you, share it with someone who's facing their own impossible fight. And remember, when the whole world says you can't, sometimes that's exactly when you can. Sometimes the greatest victories come when you're the biggest underdog. Sometimes you really can shake up the world. All you have to do is believe you can, and then prove it.